What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Arrow Season 7. Now, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen the season yet, or you haven't seen it in its entirety, you should definitely not watch this video and come back after you do. So as you can tell by the title, in my opinion, Arrow Season 7 has got to be the least consistent season of Arrow to date, and I did kind of say the same thing about Season 6, but I think Arrow Season 7 takes it to a whole nother level. This season is obviously a part of Arrow as a show, which is a very inconsistent show on its own. I think Arrow, it's insane how much it varies in quality, some seasons being great, others being okay, others being horrible. It's insane how some seasons compared to others are vastly different in quality, and I think Arrow Season 7 is kind of a part of that as well, as it is a very inconsistent season. Now, first of all, I want to say the standout episodes, as I usually do. For this season, the standout episodes include Inmate 4587 and Level 2, which by the way has gotten a lot worse ever since later episodes revealed that Felicity did not die in the future, but still, watching the episode back then, I was incredibly hyped and I loved it, so I'm still including it in the standout episodes. Then there's The Demon, as well as easily the best episode of the season, The Slab Side Redemption, as well as also the best episode of the season for other reasons and in other ways, Elseworlds Part 2. Then there's Emerald Archer, Spartan, and Confessions, as well as Living Proof. I think those 4 episodes are great in spite of the fact that they don't really contribute much to the main plot of the season, or at least that is true for both Emerald Archer and Spartan, and a little bit true for Confessions and Living Proof. So with that in mind, let's get into my actual review of the season. The first 7 episodes of the show had Oliver in prison, which that alone, that prison storyline, made it some of the best episodes in the history of the show. These 7 episodes were consistently really good. Oliver in prison gave a refreshing new look and a new place to explore that became very interesting. It made the fight scenes a lot more impactful as well as interesting as well. The storyline that unfolded in the season in the prison, as well as the characters included, were done incredibly well, and Oliver has maybe never been more badass, except for maybe during season 5, but I do think Oliver was awesome in these episodes. And on top of that, it's not only the prison storyline that was top notch during these 7 episodes, because everything connected to that, as well as things that were not connected to that, were also really good. I think these 7 episodes were when I thought this season was going to be possibly the best season of this show, but then they kind of dissolved into definitely not being that. But everything outside of the prison storyline, like the new Green Arrow showing up, it had a mystery to it that I really liked. Back then, before it was revealed who it is, it was one of the best secrets that they were holding onto on this show or in any given season. The flash forwards, which I currently hate, were incredibly interesting back then. They had a lot of great things about them. The first twist in the first episode, the fact that they kept it a secret and then revealed it in that way, was incredibly exciting, as well as the fact that they announced that Felicity was dead in the flash forwards was incredibly exciting as well. Basically everything during these 7 episodes were really good, except for the Longbow Hunters, who were incredibly disappointing, and that whole storyline with Felicity and the rest of Team Arrow, while not bad, was definitely not on par with the rest of the season or the rest of these 7 episodes. So those 7 episodes definitely set the bar pretty high for this season, but once Oliver got out of prison, the season 100% fell apart. Now, I'm not saying that Oliver leaving prison was the problem, because if you remember, if you watched my reviews, I said while these episodes were happening, while these first 7 episodes were airing, I was saying that Oliver should probably leave the prison sometime soon. Like episode 6 came out, I said he's probably going to leave in the next episode, and it's going to be very fitting for the season, and him leaving the prison was definitely a good thing. I definitely think that it would have gotten very boring and very unsatisfying to see him in prison for 22 episodes or 20 episodes or something. I think 7 was the perfect amount of episodes for him to be in there, but at the same time, the season did not handle him leaving prison at all, because it felt like they completely started a new season. It felt like the Slab Side Redemption was the season finale to the first 7 episodes, or kind of the season finale to season 6, as they completed the whole storyline with Diaz, and now going forward, they have a completely new threat to handle, which is why these first 7 episodes feel completely separate from the rest, and the only thing that's tying the two together are the new Green Arrow as well as the flash forwards, two things that, while great in the first 7 episodes, turned out to be pretty bad in the next 15. The reveal that the new Green Arrow is Emiko Queen was not a good one, as it didn't really feel natural. I mean, I guess that was definitely the case for the whole time, and people knew it was going to happen because of certain leaks of episode titles, but the actual new Green Arrow that we saw in the first 7 episodes did not feel like the same person that we saw in the next 15 episodes of the character. It felt like she became a completely different character, which is one of the reasons why Emiko Queen ended up being one of the worst, maybe the worst villain on this show ever. I haven't really decided yet, but Emiko Queen was not a good villain. Not only was she not a physical threat to Oliver, which was proven in the season finale where Oliver beat her pretty quickly, it's just that she's so much smaller than Oliver, it's hard to imagine that they are an equal fight at all. Now, she did have kind of more training, she did have more years of training, but that is besides the point, because we know that Oliver is an incredible fighter, so it's kind of even there, and it doesn't make sense that she was a physical threat, which in the end, she kind of wasn't. But on top of that, I think the actress who played her was not good in the role at all. She didn't handle the dramatic scenes very well, she did not handle any scenes where she was angry very well, and the writing for the character was abysmal as well, as like every scene she had with Oliver, she could not stop herself from calling him brother, which just highlighted how bad the writing for this character was. And in the end, she also did not have enough screen time. Now, she kind of did have enough screen time, as she was the new Green Arrow that we saw earlier, but again, they kind of felt like two separate characters, and while that would have been fine if Emiko was there as well back then, because they basically unmasked a character to an actress who we've never seen before and a character who we've never seen before. Now, I don't really have 100% a problem with the new Green Arrow and Emiko Queen feeling like different characters, because I'll be honest, they kind of done the same thing in the past and it worked out, as Prometheus, when he is masked, kind of feels like a different character to Adrian Chase when he isn't. And why that works in that season is because the reveal that it is Adrian Chase definitely worked, because we already knew Adrian Chase as a character, and they developed Adrian Chase as a character separate from Prometheus, while here in Arrow Season 7, they did not develop Emiko Queen as a character separate from the new Green Arrow. They didn't even introduce her separate from the new Green Arrow at all, so the twist and that leading into her being the main villain just did not work, and that is so bad for this season. I think Diaz was a pretty good main villain in the first 7 episodes of this season, especially episode 7. He had such a great rivalry with Oliver Queen, and then that leading into no main villain, Dante and Emiko Queen, does not work, and it's just so inconsistent in the quality, as I do think that this season had a terrible main villain, which again, that makes this season not very good in that regard. On top of that, there were other things that kind of fell apart after episode 7, specifically the fact that when Oliver got out of prison, I was so excited to see him return to being the Green Arrow, and then when he did, not only was he no longer a vigilante, which is fine, I don't mind him being deputized by the SCPD, because it was really the only way for him to continue being the Green Arrow without interference from the police, as he was currently, or before that, in prison. That's not the problem, but my problem was when he returned, he put on the Green Arrow costume, and although this makes sense canonically, he did not put on his mask or a hood at all this season, which really bothered me. Now, again, canonically, it makes sense. There's no real reason for him to wear those things at all, other than the look of it all, other than the design of it all. Now, there's no real reason for him to wear the suit, or for the Flash to wear his suit, other than his design. I mean, they have the technical aspect of it. They probably can have that in a much less complicated, less designed, less showy costume, but since they have these costumes, they might as well wear them, and Green Arrow not wearing his hood or mask, it really bothered me this season, as aesthetically, he did not look as cool, and he did not look as badass, and it didn't really serve to separate those two characters of the Green Arrow and Oliver Queen well enough. Even though they are the same character, I like the alter ego persona of the Green Arrow. He felt different. He didn't even use his voice modulator, and all of that really bothered me and made this season feel kind of different from the rest, which worked for the prison storyline because it is different, while the rest of it didn't work because it is essentially the same, but something just felt off the entirety of the time, and that's because not only did he not wear his mask or his hood, he didn't even use the voice modulator, and because of that, he just was not nearly as badass as the Green Arrow, which I know is something small, but in the end, I think it really hindered my enjoyment of the show quite a lot while watching these episodes. So this season had a lot of olicity, which inherently is a bad thing. I kind of got used to it at a certain point. It didn't really bother me this season, but just the fact that it exists in this season, just the fact that it is a part of the season, it definitely did bother me, like in scenes that were trying to be emotional with the characters, scenes where they were just alone together, or scenes, or like the ending where they had the whole montage, which, although pretty emotional, it really bothered me that this is the deal now, this is what is going on. Is a thing. It's always been a terrible thing to me. It's always been a thing that it was the worst part of this show, and as such, even though I kind of grew numb to it, and this season didn't really bother me for the most part, and I don't think it really subtracts from the season all too much. It definitely is a part of the season that is 100% a negative. On top of that, a huge negative part of the season is the flash forwards, which were pretty interesting in the first maybe 4 episodes of this season, and it really peaked when they mentioned that Felicity was dead, and then it kind of slowed down a little bit, although I did still enjoy it. But then Mia Smoke was introduced to the show, which don't like her at all. I mean, I don't hate her either, it's just that she feels like a pretty superfluous character. The whole flash forwards feel like very superfluous in the end, and then it was revealed that Felicity was not dead, which completely made me lose trust and faith in the flash forwards, and made me lose interest in the flash forwards 100%, and then going forward, every single episode, especially Star City 2040, felt like a waste of time. Every single time they cut to a flash forward, every single time we saw a flash forward, it felt like it was doing nothing but sapping the screen time from other more important storylines, as well as sapping any sort of hope we have for Star City and Oliver Queen's mission. It took a lot away from the tension, it took a lot away from certain intense things about the show, and also it took away from Roy Harper's screen time in the present day, which is kind of unforgivable. And because of all of those things, I truly believe that the flash forwards are quite possibly the worst thing that has ever been added to Arrow, although it's probably right behind Olicity. Those two things are the worst things that bring down certain seasons of this show, and as for this season, both Olicity and especially the flash forwards bring down the quality of this season quite a lot. I have been pretty negative in this review so far, and that's just because there's always more to talk about in the negativity of especially like a season like this, where most of the season is not as good as the rest. That being said, there are definitely a lot of things I liked about the episode, about the season. Again, the first 7 episodes are great, with a great storyline as well as a pretty great main-villain rivalry between the main hero and the main villain, but there are also other things about the next 15 episodes of the season that I do like the standalone episodes, like I mentioned earlier, that are kind of a little bit separate from the main storyline of the season and are good for different reasons. Like the Emerald Archer episode is good because of the different style it takes, same thing with Confessions, and then Spartan is mostly good because of the Green Lantern stuff, and then there's Living Proof, which is also mostly good because of Tommy Merlin and a couple other things in that episode. So for the most part, there are a lot of great things about this season, a lot of things that they definitely did right, and the only thing I can think of that they didn't do right is the main villain and the main season's big storyline, and that's definitely an integral part of the season, which is why these standalone episodes, even though most of the episodes in the season are definitely good, the overall season storyline is not typically, which is why there's definitely more negative things to talk about in this season than positives. But I did enjoy most of the season. I gave most of the episodes a high score because I did enjoy most of them individually, but again, I didn't love this season. In fact, I don't think it was a great season. I think that it was mostly just good, and some were closer to mediocre than great. Couple other things I want to mention, like the new Suicide Squad, the Ghost Initiative, which became a thing, was a thing for one episode, and then just fell apart completely, which is incredibly disappointing, and it really makes me wonder why they did that at all. On top of that, the Star City Slayer, which was a villain that was set up throughout the first 7 episodes, really the last 2 episodes of the first 7 episodes of the season, and then he returned, again, 1 episode, and then he is done. I didn't like those 2 things at all, and there are a lot of things in in this season that I felt like they set up and they didn't really get a good payoff or any payoff at all, and they might in season 8, but I doubt it. I doubt it because there's really only 10 episodes in season 8, and one of those episodes is going to be the Crisis crossover. So I do think that that is an aspect of the season that I do not really like at all. So in terms of the score of this season, I'm not 100% sure. It's really hard to give because of the inconsistency of it all. Again, the first 7 episodes are really, really good, but that's only really like a third of the season. And while I do think like maybe the last 3 episodes of the season are really good as well, everything in between, which is 12 whole episodes, which is more than the other 2 sets of episodes combined, are not very good at all. I would think that I would give the first 7 episodes maybe like a 9 to 9.5 out of 10, while the second 2/3 minus the last 3 episodes, it'll give something close to a 7, while the last 3 episodes I'd give like an 8.5 or something. So I do not know what to give this score or this season score, but what I do know is I don't think the season is as good as season 6, and that's only really one reason, and that's I don't think that the beginning of a movie or a show is as important to it as the ending. Now again, I don't dislike the ending of the season. I think that it ended pretty well with the last couple episodes, but everything in between as well as everything leading up to the ending, it was not very good at all. So I do think that this season is not as good as season 6, but at the same time I do think it is probably a little bit better than season 3. So I would have to give it some sort of score between the two of 7.5, which I gave 3, and 8.4, which I gave season 6. So I'll give it right in the middle and give it a 7.9 out of 10, which I do think is a pretty low score for Arrow because the better seasons of Arrow all have over 9, but in the end, this is not one of the better seasons of Arrow, despite the fact that the first 7 episodes led us to believe that it had the potential to be. But anyway, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe on this video, and let me know all your thoughts about this season in the comments, as well as in the poll in the top right corner of the video, and as always, thanks for watching.